Some of the most powerful arguments for God's existence, they don't actually come from Scripture. They come from pure logic. And today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating one from the 7th century that might just blow your mind when it comes to the idea of infinity. So, this is the big question, right? It's what a philosopher named Maximus the Confessor was wrestling with. How can some boundless, infinite, totally eternal being actually care about our little finite world? I mean, it just feels like a total paradox, doesn't it? But Maximus, he was convinced he'd cracked it, that he had a logical proof. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to follow his breadcrumbs, step by step, and see exactly how he builds this incredible case from scratch. It's kind of like we're on an intellectual detective mission. All right, so first things first, let's really get our heads around the core problem Maximus was even trying to solve. You gotta understand, this wasn't just some abstract thought experiment for him. No, this was a massive question about the very nature of reality, and philosophers back then they were fiercely debating it. So where does Maximus start? He starts by taking a really popular idea at the time and just completely dismantling it. The idea was that you could have two eternal things existing forever side by side, like God and matter. But Maximus says, no way. He argues it's just logically impossible. The whole idea that they could somehow cause each other, he calls it, and this is a direct quote, logically invalid and inadmissible. For him, it's simple. You can't have two different starting points for everything. There can only be one. Okay, so to build his case for that single starting point, Maximus gives us two key concepts. These are really the foundation, the building blocks for his whole argument. And they are the monad and the dyad. So first, let's talk about the monad. The easiest way to think about it is it's the ultimate one. It is totally singular, no beginning, no end, you can't divide it, it has no parts, and nothing else defines it. It just is. That Big Bang analogy is pretty good. It's like that single uncaused source where everything else comes from. And on the flip side, you have the dyad. And the dyad, it's basically everything else in the universe. It's anything that's composite, which is just a fancy way of saying it's made of parts. And because it's made of parts, you can divide it, right? It has a beginning, it's limited, and it's always defined by the relationship between its parts. Your chair, your phone, you, me, pretty much everything we can see and touch is a dyad. So there you have it, these two fundamental polar opposites. You've got the monad, infinite, no beginning, totally simple, absolute. And then the dyad, limited, has a beginning, it's complex, it's relational. And here's the absolute key to Maximus's whole argument. These two things aren't just different, they are logical opposites. And because of that, they simply cannot both exist as eternal principles. It's one or the other. All right, now that we've got our philosopher's toolkit, the monad and the dyad, we're ready. Let's walk through the core of the proof. And it all hinges on what the word infinite really means. Okay, let's do this step by step. It's actually pretty elegant. So, step one. By its very definition, something that's infinite can't have any limits, right? Simple enough. Step two. A dyad, as we said, is made of parts, and those parts define and therefore limit each other. Now here comes the big aha moment in step three. If a dyad exists, its very presence, this thing with limits, negates the whole principle of a truly limitless infinite. It's a contradiction. And that leads us to the only possible conclusion in step four. Only the singular, partless monad can actually be infinite and without a beginning. It's the only one that fits the definition. And Maximus is a stickler for details here. He doesn't just toss around the word infinite. Oh no, he defines it with surgical precision. He says the infinite has to be unbounded in every single way. Its substance, its power, its activity. There are no asterisks, no footnotes, no except for this one little thing. It has to be infinite, period. So, okay, Maximus has used pure logic to get us to a single, infinite creator, the monad. But you might be thinking, that's still a pretty abstract concept, right? It's a long way from a God who actually cares about us. So how does he connect those dots? Well, that's where we're going next. This next leap in logic is absolutely crucial. Maximus basically says it's only right and reasonable that if you create something, you also provide for it. You're its protector, its overseer. Think about it. The very act of creation implies a relationship. For him, the idea of a creator who just makes something and then walks away, It's not just cold, it's illogical. In this ongoing care, he gives it a name, providence. And I want you to pay close attention to the wording here because it's not a passive thing, it's attentive care, it's favorable assistance and direction. So in this framework, providence isn't just some vague background force. It's an active, helpful, guiding intelligence that logically has to follow from the act of creation. And then, like any good philosopher, Maximus tackles the counter-arguments head-on. Some people were saying, okay, maybe God cares about the big picture stuff, the universals, but not the little details, the particulars. Others were saying God just wasn't smart enough or powerful enough to manage it all. And Maximus just shoots all of that down. His logic is simple. Universals are made of particulars. If you neglect the parts, the whole thing falls apart. So an infinite creator, by definition, has to have the knowledge and the power to care for every single thing, from the biggest galaxy down to the smallest atom. Okay, now this is where things get really interesting, because Maximus takes this huge cosmic framework, this whole monad versus dyad thing, and he brings it right down to a personal level. He applies it directly to the human soul. He talks about a material dyad that exists inside every single one of us. And he doesn't mean something physical. He's talking about that inner conflict we all feel, right? Our passions, like anger and desire, that are constantly pulling our soul in a million different directions. He says these feelings rebel against reason. They scatter our focus and pull us away from that simple, unified state of being, the state that's supposed to mirror the monad. And man, does he get specific. Just look at this breakdown of the soul. He separates the parts of our passionate nature that can listen to reason, up here you see our desires, our anger, from the parts that just kind of do their own thing, like our basic bodily functions down at the bottom. So for Maximus, the whole point of a spiritual life is to take all these divided, chaotic, dyadic passions and bring them under the unifying control of reason. It's a journey from inner chaos to inner unity to inner peace. So think about the journey we just took. We followed a single thread of logic all the way from the abstract nature of infinity to the idea of a creator who cares, right down into the messy conflicts inside our own heads. It's an incredible thing. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? The search for a theory of everything isn't just something for physicists in a lab. It's a deeply human question, one we're all still asking. In a world that feels so divided, how do we find unity? And how do we find a little peace inside ourselves?